Welcome to this explainer. If you've been watching the tech space over the past few days, you've likely seen a complete whirlwind of product launches and massive investment announcements. But let's cut through all that noise. Today, we're just going to share some thinking and focus purely on the strategic so what. We're looking at the structural shifts that are actively reshaping multi-year technology roadmaps right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. The entire game has shifted. The recent news heavily signals a fundamental change in how organizations need to buy, build, and govern artificial intelligence. It's really no longer just about which model writes the best code or passes some standardized test. The AI market is actually consolidating around infrastructure dependencies.
Over the next few minutes, we'll systematically break down exactly what these converging forces mean for your enterprise strategy. We'll look at the broader infrastructure realignment, how AI is quietly creating cloud lock-in, the reality of production speeds, platform risk, a rather fascinating paradox over at Google, and finally, the immediate actions you should take. So, starting with Section 1, the infrastructure realignment.
The competition between the frontier labs has completely changed. We're no longer just watching a race toward AGI milestones or obsessing over benchmark scores. The market has pivoted hard toward operational deployment. Right now, it's all about shipping production tools and securing infrastructure lock-in. These companies want to be the operational backbone of your enterprise, not just a cool research novelty.
Which brings us to Section 2, AI equals cloud lock-in. Now, what's really fascinating here is how your AI vendor choices are quietly, but decisively, dictating your entire cloud strategy. Look at the recent moves by the major hyperscalers. You've got Google making a massive investment in Anthropic. Amazon followed suit, expanding its commitment by adding 5 gigawatts of compute capacity for them. And Microsoft and OpenAI, they actually dissolved their exclusivity clause to allow for multi-cloud distribution, even though Azure is obviously still the primary engine. The real takeaway here is that Google and Amazon's moves aren't traditional partnerships. They're essentially compute capacity auctions. They are paying these frontier labs to consume their infrastructure, which creates deep, deep dependency chains. To put that into perspective, we're talking about $40 billion. That's Google's total investment in Anthropic, which actually surpasses Amazon's prior investments by 60%. Because Anthropic is the only lab with dual hyperscaler commitments at this massive scale, they hold some incredible negotiating leverage. But for you, the enterprise buyer, the warning lights should be flashing. Your AI vendor's cloud dependencies are rapidly becoming your own. When you choose a model today, you are increasingly choosing exactly where your workloads are going to live for the next decade. Moving on to Section 3, production outpaces your roadmap. There's a massive disconnect right now inside IT and healthcare organizations. Production is just completely outpacing internal roadmaps. The sheer velocity of these simultaneous product releases is wild. OpenAI just shipped GPT 5.5, which is highly optimized for autonomous workflows, and came with a 20% price increase, by the way. Microsoft launched real-time voice and 8 Dynamics 365 agents. Anthropic released Claude Cowork, and AWS expanded Bedrock with the Agent Core CLI. The crucial thing to understand here is that these are operational production tools at general availability. They're not previews, they're not just fun little pilots. Which leads to a pretty sobering reality check for planning committees. If your 2026 to 2027 roadmap still treats agentic AI as just an exploratory phase, it is already behind. AI is shifting from pilot programs to the absolute operational backbone of businesses, contact centers, and clinical workflows way faster than most long-term roadmaps anticipated. Let's look at Section 4, calculating AI platform risk. So the crucial point is that with all this rapid consolidation, there are hidden costs. We really need to talk about lifecycle risk. This is the operational and financial threat you face when these frontier labs sunset their foundational models with minimal notice, forcing massive unplanned enterprise migrations. This isn't just a theoretical IT headache. This specific threat belongs squarely in your executive risk register. Platform risk is very real, and honestly, the market is heavily underpricing it right now. To show you what this looks like in practice, let's look at OpenAI. They recently discontinued their Codex model, which was actually their second sunset since their 2023 relaunch. And what happened? Enterprise prompts built on those APIs broke. Developers couldn't just easily migrate. They were forced to rebuild for GPT 5.5 completely from scratch. It's a perfect example of platform consolidation, forcing entirely unplanned engineering debt onto your teams. It's not a one-time glitch. It's a pattern you have to plan for. Now for Section 5, the Google Gemini paradox. This is a fascinating strategic anomaly that highlights exactly why corporate hedging is so important. On one hand, Google is deeply committed to internal development. They've built the Gemini model, they've got Sergey Brin's elite team working on it. But at the exact same time, they are making that massive $40 billion external investment into Anthropic. They are literally funding Claude, which is a direct enterprise competitor to Gemini. That sends a huge signal. Either it's a confession that Claude might be superior for certain enterprise workloads, or it means that capturing infrastructure revenue by selling TPU compute matters way more to Google than actually owning the winning model.
So I want to leave you with this question for a moment. If Google itself is hedging its bets on Gemini, should you really be betting your entire organizational AI roadmap on a single model?
Let's move to Section 6, Immediate Actions for Leaders. All right, shifting from the macro strategy to the tactical realities right there on your desk. Based on this week's structural shifts, here is your immediate checklist. First, audit your third-party vendor AI access controls. We just saw that April 21st unauthorized access incident at Anthropic, the Mythos breach, which happened via third-party credentials. It's absolute proof that cybersecurity for these gated models is still largely unregulated. Second, stop the endless piloting and begin actually running production agents. Third, strictly align your AI vendor selection with your multi-year cloud strategy. And finally, confirm your readiness for EU AI Act conformity assessments. Speaking of that regulation, I want to highlight a very critical date, August 2nd, 2026. That is the deadline for full compliance for high-risk AI systems under the EU AI Act. Since today is May 3rd, 2026, that deadline is literally less than 3 months away. There was no new European Commission guidance published this week, which means if you have AI deployments in EU markets, getting ready for that conformity assessment needs to be on your agenda today, not waiting until July. We've covered a lot of ground today, but it all boils down to one central idea. The organizations that are going to win over the next 12 to 18 months are the ones who treat AI as a multi-year infrastructure commitment, not just a quick quarterly tech purchase. Which brilliantly illustrates the final, absolutely critical question you must ask your leadership team today. Are you making your AI vendor decisions with your cloud strategy in the room? Thank you for joining me for this explainer.